Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation about your Kundalini awakening experiences. My name is Chrism, and I am one of your hosts for this radio program. I'd like to welcome everybody coming into the chat room. Hello there, and I'd like to do a little bit of a sound check. So if Manisha, Tim, Bo, Iman, if you can let me know if you're hearing this clearly, I would appreciate it. Sometimes with the show we get a clicking sound or a ticking sound, and I don't want that to happen. So if you can let me know if the sound is coming through clearly, I would appreciate it. Hopefully I'm not talking to the air at the moment. So I don't see any activity there. So let's check it out here. Hello, is the sound coming through? And I wonder how much of a lag time there is for this. Well, okay. At this point, I'm going to have to introduce my co-host. Her name is Amelia Centaur. She's coming in from Ireland. So, hello, Amelia. Nothing happening here. Hello, Amelia.
Okay, I am here. Just arrived, so I can hear you clearly.
So the
can you
sound
hear me?
Okay, and so I'm getting no response from the people on the chat here. Oh, okay.
Bo says he can hear.
Bo
Cool.
can hear. Okay,
Uh-oh.
so I wonder if everybody else is just sleeping. What about Manisha?
Manisha, are you asleep? Thanks, Bo. Manisha is asleep. Okay, fair enough. It's very late over there in Germany. It's gone midnight, so that's okay. Tim,
all right.
can you hear us? Tim is in the UK. No, Manisha says she can hear us. Hi,
Okay.
Manisha. Thank you.
Right. All right. Thank you, Centaura. We'll go ahead and start then. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. This is something we typically have to do on Blog Talk Radio because they don't give us the ability to do a pre-show sound check. So we have to kind of do the check on the air. Within the Kundalini, we're going to be faced with specific kinds of challenges that are custom tailored to you. These challenges range anything from addictive behaviors to expectations of pleasure, habits that you may have formed over the years. She will literally read your life, and as she reads your life, putting it in. I have to admit, there's some. I'm putting her in the shoes of a human, even though that's not the case. But anyway, your life gets read. Let me put it that way. Your life gets read, and your karma gets read. So in many ways, all of your lives are being read by the sacred Kundalini, and the Kundalini is beginning to sculpt certain experiences for you in this life based upon, what you have done in other lives, the choices you have made, the outcomes, the work that you did between lives, and then, of course, coming into this life, everything from picking your parents to your hair color, your eye color, your for the physical body, then of course the emotional aspects of your beingness as well, what you may be afraid of, what specific fears come to you, how this is manifested is basically especially as a child, when you're terribly afraid of, say, water or fire or something like that, well, you can pretty much surmise that there was some a big experience for the individual by virtue of fire or water or some other form of a big imprint upon the person. You could also, you could be afraid of a bear. Maybe you were eaten by a bear or a lion or or something of that nature, and that will carry over into the next expression. It'll carry over into the next expression, and it will be used as a fulcrum to stimulate levels of fearlessness in you. So if you were eaten by a bear, then a bear may come to you in the dream life in order to give you a focus on what you can overcome in this life. And so it's very important for people to understand that and to know, once you know that you have the Kundalini, and we're doing a little backtracking here, once you know you have the Kundalini, and then you go back into your life and you look at your fears, you look at the behavioral predilections, were you always a sharp child, or were you kind of a dull child, somebody who's just kind of soaking it all up? And I don't mean that as dullness. I don't mean dullness as a cut or anything like that. I just mean somebody who is soaking up more of the environment than expressing, into that environment. Just soaking it up, kind of a quiet child, taking things in. What variations upon those two themes were you, and how did that manifest? So, for instance, with me, I had all these Kundalini things going on. I was looking at floating lights, and I was looking at entities and interacting with some of the entities and having some of those entities attack me. I was taken into like the Amazon jungle, or like the Amazon jungle, somewhere where there was howler monkeys every night, every single night. And I was kind of left on the jungle floor. I still have visuals of that. And, just some really wild dreams, lots of flying, lots of things like that. And that began to sculpt my existence. For the longest time, I thought everybody had these types of things until I was, corrected by my parents. It's like, not only did people not have these other experiences, but I was punished. I was punished for even bringing them up, because it was so outlandish back in the 60s, the 1960s. People weren't allowed to express that way. I mean, unless you were a science fiction writer like Isaac Asimov or Robert Heinlein or somebody like that, you weren't really allowed to speak of such things in certain quadrants of society. And where I was being brought up was definitely one of those quadrants of society. So as you go back into your life, you can look at some of the Kundalini-esque predilections you may have had. Maybe you too, during your early childhood, or during the refinement phases of your early childhood. And I forgot to mention that. I've mentioned it in other programs. So, the child is really living a lot of the karma for the future Kundalini activated person they're going to become. And so what traumas did you go through? Were you raped? Were you molested in some way? Were you physically abused, emotionally abused, psychologically abused in some way? And you need to look at that, and you need to look at those parameters. And if that occurred to you, and you are having Kundalini right now, well, you can start doing the arithmetic. Those were karmic parameters that needed to be crossed by you, that needed to be experienced by you. And that was set up for you before you were even born by yourself and your grace together, as you began to materialize the future you that you now are. And I'm going to stop that right there because I think it can get really confusing. The future you that you now are. Okay? So this is very important for people to understand as far as backtracking the underpinnings of your current Kundalini expression. And as you move further into your Kundalini, you might have some of the skills, well, I should say some of the skills of Kundalini itself may start coming through you, even though your control over your ego has not matured very far. And the ego will naturally glom on to these special things that the Kundalini can do through a person. And the ego will go, wow, I am so powerful. I am just so amazing to myself. God, when I look in the mirror, I just cannot help it. I am just the best person around because I can do all these. I am, this is where the self-aggrandizement comes in and begins to tarnish the beautiful qualities of the Kundalini coming through. And this is where controlling the ego and controlling those aspects of self-aggrandizement can be so, so very important. There's nothing like egocentrism to clog up the spigot of Kundalini grace coming through an individual. And this is part of the pattern, though. This is part of the refinement pattern. The Kundalini may come along and it gives you a special skill. And, okay, well, let's see what Chrism does with that special skill. And what does his ego do with that? Is he starting to blow his own trumpet? Is he boasting to the crowds of how amazing he is because he can do these things? And, what is he doing? And how is that developing him into a greater expression of the divine unity and plurality that the Kundalini is, the Vesika Pisces? And let's talk a little bit about the Vesika Pisces. Vesika Pisces are two circles that intercept each other in the middle. So you have a circle on the right and a circle on the left, and you bring those two circles together, and where the parameters of those circles intersect, that is the Vesika Pisces. And that is typically where people with the Kundalini are going to be, is in that oval area where the two circles are joined together. And there's many, many different ways you can see that. You can see one circle as sacred masculine, one circle as sacred feminine. You can see one circle as physicality, another circle as the spiritual world or the astral life. You can see this in many different ways, and you can see them all at the same time, all at once. Kundalini people are in various stages within that intersection, which, is the Vesika Pisces. So, as if you look at it on paper, you have the two circles intersecting each other, and then you have that intersection. And somewhere within that intersection, you can put a little gauge inside that intersection. And, one person is, really right at the edge of the parameter there, and some people a little further in, that type of thing. And as you're inside of the Vesika Pisces, these tests are going to be given to you. These tests of your behavior, of your choices, of how you trumpet yourself, or are you just really quiet? Do you not do anything? You're just kind of, probably in many ways, people are afraid of these skills that they have. They, very, very modest people, and they just kind of don't want to stir the pot. They don't want to get a lot of attention sent their way. So they're very quiet about it. They don't say anything about it. And subsequently, they also don't do anything with it. They don't reach out and help people. They don't, in any way, shape, or form, allow themselves to exhibit a special God-given skill set into the public menu, because the public menu doesn't accept this very well. They're going to ostracize you, possibly. Imagine somebody in a very, very, very strict religious authoritarian belief system. Like here in the States, you could say the Amish. So imagine an Amish person, a very, the Amish are a very, very strict, authoritarian, male-dominated religious system, and they're so strict that they refuse to modernize themselves. They still use horses and buggies for transportation, even though they put blinkers on them, which just is, anyway, I won't go there. They try to be as plain as possible. They don't, they're really working against self-aggrandizement in any way. And imagine somebody in that kind of a position having the Kundalini come to them, and, they can heal, and they can bilocate, and they can, do all the different things that people can do with the Kundalini. And oh my God, but if I do that, I'm going to be excommunicated from my religious, system. I'm going to be shamed in front of them, because it will be something of the level of self-aggrandizement, which is exactly what they're against. And so you can see that in many different ways, the Kundalini will test our sacrifice of our behaviorisms, our cultural mannerisms, sacrifice all of that to the grace, to the Kundalini. And that includes sacrificing your willingness to boast, or to think that you're the greatest because you have the Kundalini, which runs straight into egotism. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that we live in a world of egotism, a human world of egotism, because the salamanders don't have a lot of ego. The camels don't have a lot of ego. The giraffes, the elephants, the sharks, the minnows, the dolphins, they don't have a lot of ego. It's the people that have the ego. The trees don't have ego. I got news for you. But the people have the ego. And it's the ego in the person that needs to really be refined, and refined into a position of subservience rather than dominance. And just to make it really challenging, we live in a society where ego has the dominant position. Okay, this is our Achilles heel, really, as a species and as a society. I mean, just think about it. I mean, we have a bunch of egos that are, pointing nuclear warheads at each other. Literally, this is our world right now. Just a second. So this is the world we live in, and this is also the world we live in where Kundalini people are coming into a greater level of action, actionability, presence, and what's the word? I want to use the word sway. They're coming into a level of, shall we say, appreciation, a silent appreciation by the populations, by the masses. By silent, I mean people don't know that they have the Kundalini. And I may be talking with a lot of you right now that are in that position. And so, backtracking a little more, as you came into this condition that you're now in, and some of you I'm talking with, you've had this for maybe 2 years, you've had this for maybe 10 years, but you haven't been able to figure out what's going on. It's like, oh my God, what is going on with me? I wake up and I'm floating 6 inches off the bed. I mean, what the heck is going on? And you're so devastated by it that you don't tell anybody. You don't tell your wife. You don't tell your husband. You don't tell your boyfriend. You don't tell your MD. You just kind of keep it to yourself and just wonder, am I truly going crazy today? And you're not. These are the attributes of grace. And grace, as I've said before on this program, grace will do you before you do it. Grace is in charge. Grace has control. The grace and the Kundalini, as I'm saying it, are the same thing. Grace and Kundalini are the same thing. And so grace will have its way with you, whether you like it or not. I was answering this in a question just last night. I think it's the question was I actually forget the question, but the answer was that does Kundalini discriminate? That was the question. Does Kundalini discriminate? And people were coming online and going, oh, no, Kundalini doesn't discriminate. Anybody that wants to have Kundalini should be able to have the right to have the Kundalini, no matter what. And the information that came to me was absolutely the opposite. Kundalini does discriminate. She will not allow certain people who want to have it, say for powers, ego aggrandizement. She will not let everybody have the Kundalini, even though everybody has the Kundalini dormant, within the last three vertebrae of their tailbone. Even though they have it there, they just haven't reached the level of refinement where they will be allowed to have that come forth. And so if you ever get asked, does Kundalini discriminate? Well, you can bet you that it does discriminate. It does discriminate. And it will discriminate not only against those who want to have the Kundalini, but it's going to discriminate against those who don't want to have it too. Think about it. You hear about Kundalini and you hear about, oh my gosh, I got to change this, I got to change that. It's just like, this thing takes me over. It's just like, I don't want that. I'm going to skip over that. I don't want that anymore. That's no. And all the egotistic reasons why you wouldn't want that. And the Kundalini looks at that and goes, sorry, my child, here you go. Boom. And you have the Kundalini. And so she does discriminate. He, sacred masculine, does discriminate. Don't ever think that you get these platitudes in egotistic society. Oh, well, if you put your mind to it, then you can have anything that you want. It's like, if you want it enough, if you desire it enough, well, then it is yours for the taking. And it's just not true. Not in a Kundalini context. What's that system? There's a system out for about 20 years now, or maybe a little less. The Secret. Maybe some of you have heard of The Secret. The Secret is basically saying that, well, if you try hard enough and you want it enough and you put your mind to it and you put all this energy into it, then it is yours to be had. And it's just not true within the Kundalini context. Maybe it's true for that red sports car that you want to have, that Dodge Viper, the candy apple red Dodge Viper that you want to have, or that beautiful house, that chateau in the south of France that you want to have, or that whatever it is that you want to have, of a material nature. Sure, maybe those things would fall under the auspices of The Secret, and you can have anything you want if you just put your mind to it. But not for the Kundalini. The Kundalini literally has to be earned. Now, you can earn it through doing certain things. You can make certain choices in your life that allow you to have the Kundalini. But in the larger picture of it, you had to reach a level of refinement where you could even begin to explore the Kundalini. A lot of people want to join these groups that I have on Facebook and Yahoo, and unfortunately, the authority figures that control these groups, they put in a section where you can, where they got to ask a question, they got to say why they want to come onto that group, and so many people want to come onto these groups because I want the power of the Kundalini. I want the power. I want to be able to lift a car and throw it across the football field. I want to do a field goal with that car. And this is why they want the Kundalini. And so, of course, no, I'm not going to put them on that group, because even by just being on the group, such a strong vibration and such a strong expression of Kundalini exists on that group, that literally people they get put into a refinement zone, and these folks that are going for power really don't have the tools quite yet within their mindset to come into balance within some of the tests that the Kundalini will bring you into. And this leads me into this thing by St. Teresa of Avila, and I'm going to try to get over here and read it to you and kind of go into it a little bit. It's a very important thing, very, very important piece that she wrote, and this is from her autobiography of St. Teresa of Avila. St. Teresa of Avila was a 15th century nun, 14th or 15th century nun, and she became full Kundalini awakened, fully Kundalini aware, to the point where she was levitating without trying. Okay, nuns would have to sit, and she was a nun, a Catholic nun. Two nuns would sit on either side of her, pressing her to the pew, pressing her to the seat, so that she wouldn't float off and scare the heck out of everybody in the chapel. This was something that went on and on and on. A lot of writings, extensive writings about it. And some of them, most of them, I think are true, but there's some untruth to it as well. People tend to, exaggerate and expand on these things. But this is what she wrote. She says, quote, "The safest course in these things is to declare without fail the whole state of the soul, together with the graces our Lord gives me, to a confessor who is learned and obey him." So she's saying the safest course in these things is to declare without fail the whole state of the soul, together with the graces our Lord gives me, to a confessor who is learned and to obey him. And this is basically to give herself completely, totally, without fail, the whole state of her soul. And the soul comprising the 5 bodies of human expression: the psychological body, the emotional body, the physical body, the spiritual body, and which body am I forgetting? The mental body. This is like my mental body is going somewhere right now. And you give those 5 bodies the total self to a confessor who is learned and obey him. And that is, a confessor in her language would have been a priest or a man or somebody who knows about this type of thing. And she continues, she says, "I do so. And if I did not, I should have no peace. There can be no danger in this, but rather a great profit." Now, I skipped over one part, and she says, I should have no peace, nor is it right that we women who are unlearned should have any. And that's just an artifact of the cultural, how should I say it? The cultural issues that women had with, inside of a male-dominated society, and part of her raising, and which, is who she is too. So nor is it right that we women who are unlearned should have any. There can be no danger in this, but rather great profit. In other words, when you give yourself completely to a teacher or to a confessor, as she says, there can be no danger in this. There can be no danger, but rather great profit. And that means no matter what is done to you inside of this gifting of your complete and total self to this person, this teacher, there can be no danger in this. And you might ask yourself, well, why can there be no danger? I mean, you take total advantage of you. How is that not dangerous? And basically what is being said here is because it is of a divine nature. the divine nature puts you in contact with this confessor, with this person, with this teacher. And because it is of a divine nature, divinity is in control of what is happening, what is being taught, how it is being taught, where, why it is being taught. It is in the hands, literally, in the hands of the divine. And this is what is being said here. You've got to be able to trust it. And she continues. She says, there can be no danger in this, but rather great profit. This is what our Lord has often commanded me to do. Once again, this is what our Lord, the divine, has commanded her to do. And it is what I have often done. And so she does it. And sometimes I think she vacillates against doing it because, it's difficult. This person is put there to stress an individual on purpose. It is not a dalliance in Pleasureville. That person is there to stress, to antagonize, to really, really put the spurs, speaking in a Western format, put the spurs to you. She says, this is what our Lord has often commanded me to do, and it is what I have often done. I had a confessor who mortified me greatly and now and then distressed me. He tried me heavily, for he disquieted me exceedingly. And yet he was the one who, I believe, did me the most good. Though I had a great affection for him, I was occasionally tempted to just leave him. I thought that the pain he inflicted on me disturbed my prayer. And it probably did. If it didn't disturb her prayer, then he wasn't doing enough to antagonize her. And this is what, a lot of us have to understand. This is exactly what is required. Ask any of my private students here. We'll even ask Amelia here, who is no longer a student. She's no longer a private student, but she experienced a lot of that. And it is not the easiest thing to be within contact of somebody who is designed to do that for you. Go ahead, Santara. Let's hear it.
Okay, Chrism. Well, everything you say is right, and everything that Teresa of Avila has said is correct. Because, I can remember, you were my teacher for 9 years, and you're not an easy teacher, and I feel any true teacher that is given to us from Kundalini, as you were to me, isn't easy. You totally stressed me on purpose, and it wasn't easy on my ego. I was often tempted to leave you, but I was never allowed, because for me, the Kundalini gave me into what it was, and the mannerisms or the ways in which you were going to be my teacher. It was way beyond anything that I would have wanted. It was not what I would have expected. It was like, wow. And I can honestly say this with my hand in my heart, and this is the truth. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, in terms of difficulty, in terms of being stressed, in terms of wanting to leave but not being allowed to leave. And that's the amazing, what's the word I'm looking for? Not contradiction, but there's a word. That's the amazing.
Well, it is a contradiction
what is it
too.
Yeah, it is. But when two things are equally true, it's incredible, really. If Kundalini guides you to a teacher, you don't have a choice. And I love actually Saint Teresa of Avila, because I think she had quite a few confessors. If she moved through a few of them, and what she said, what she actually said there, Chrism, was, part of her culture at the time where she said, unlearned woman. That wouldn't apply today. And so I think you're right to have skipped over that in a way, although it was very much part of who she was and where she was at. And I mean, even today in the 21st century, there are issues that come up for us as women or men, because you have men and women as your students. And so within that context, our egos will come up as well. And I know you've had students who have huge issues with the fact that you're a man and they're a woman. So even those aspects are very, very interesting within a Kundalini context, aren't they?
Well, yeah,
within the
yeah.
ego.
Can you hear? Can you hear? Okay, I just put my headphones on.
Of course, I can. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're sucking through a straw, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're having a drink.
I've had huge issues, and people have really, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think that, man, I just made all these mistakes, and yet I didn't, because it wasn't set up as a challenge for me. It was set up as a challenge for the people that were receiving it. And some people, I think, just got tested so much so that they stopped doing the work. They stopped doing the work. They stopped listening to their Kundalini. They stopped. They just stopped. Their ego took over, and they just stopped, and they kind of turned into a violent expression of egotistic overload in many cases. I can think of a few people just right now. I remember I took an individual down to Brazil, and where I met Amelia for the first time, a beautiful meeting. And then I flew with a couple of people to Peru, where we did the ayahuasca for the first time, or at least they did, and I was there to babysit. That was a very, very strange trip, because we literally ended up touring central Peru by bus for days and days and days. And we got pulled over by the army there because somebody was smuggling propane, which at that time was being used to produce cocaine. And so the bus gets stopped, the military comes on board, and they search our bags, and and I started talking to some of the soldiers who were actually, they were friendly to me anyway, and learning about them and their culture and things like that, and my partners were getting a bit stressed out with this whole thing, and as the trip continued, one person in particular, was really chafing at the levels of teaching that I was giving him, and at one point in a small town on the coast of Peru, right outside of the capital city, he turned to me and he yelled. He says, "What am I? What am I, your slave?" And I said, "Well, yeah, in a Kundalini context, you're the slave. That's right." That didn't sit well.
I'm a slave of Kundalini.
I'm a slave of Shakti. And he got that eventually, but at the time he was just like totally perplexed and angry that he, the great person that he is, should be considered in such a lowly context, and at least to his mind, lowly context. And he's having a really hard time with it, and it really kind of triggered his stay with me. He lived here at the ashram for 9 months, and wonderful person, blessed person, but he had to move on because he just couldn't make that fit that St. Teresa of Avila is suggesting you have to make. And St. Hildegard went through almost exactly the same type of scenario. I mean, she was in a male-dominated section of Catholicism in an earlier time, like 500 years earlier than St. Teresa of Avila. In a male-dominated scenario where some of the priests were raping the nuns and that whole scenario. So the nuns would, of course, get pregnant, and then they'd get kicked out of the community, and they would die, because in the 10th century things were pretty harsh. And yet, even being the woman, a woman, she was giving advice to kings of the time. She was a scientist. She was what we would call an MD, a dietitian. I mean, St. Hildegard was, she had an even harder time with it, to the point where the Kundalini would knock her out and leave her bedridden for a time, like weeks and weeks at a time, and the sisters would not know if she was going to survive. And then she would, of course, come out of it, and she would have all these expanded skill sets, and it's not easy. And so really, ladies and gentlemen, if you're guided to a Kundalini teacher, you've got to put your seatbelts on. It's not going to be an easy ride, as Amelia just told you. I mean, and so with many of you who have listened to this program throughout the years since 2012, we have talked a lot about what Santara has gone through. The chode experiences and being forced to swim in really, really cold water, being told to go swim in the ocean and to stay under the ocean water as the waves are crashing over her, and say a certain mantra a certain amount of time. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. To go out and roll in the mud during the height of these amazing storms that Ireland can have, to even worse things that I won't go into.
And can I just say, don't.
Yes.
But I mean, what's interesting is they're not even, I was going to say Chrism, they're not even the worst in a way. I mean, they were very challenging and very difficult, and for sure, I and all of that. But I mean, I can remember, I mean, if we're going to talk about ego and ego response to stuff, I can remember feeling some of the stuff that you would have said to me or directed me to do, or just even in our communication, that, you were making a mistake. You said earlier, I often thought maybe I was making a mistake, but no. But I remember my Kundalini directing me or letting me know that even if what you did was in inverted commas, mistake, it wasn't a mistake. And that had to be just understood, that was not something that I could really negotiate. That it was the Kundalini had directed me into this, we call it refinement, or this process with the teacher, and that I had no option, even if I really felt it was a mistake. Tough. And that's the thing, I mean, that is actually quite incredible to be involved in with a teacher. And when that all evolves and you go through that, and it's just incredible what is given to you as a student within that process. There were so many people, and I know some of them in person, who feel victims of this, and really that's all, that is what we are being given to actually move out of and to understand on a different way within the context of Kundalini. I don't know if people understand that, but that was a great gift to me, that whole thing, I can't express enough how much of a gift that was. And being given that by my Kundalini, hard and honest was. It actually was on another level because there is a great freedom in it.
Well said, Sandra. Well said, extremely well said. And coming from, you know, the voice of a person who's had that experience. I didn't get to have that experience in the way that you're having it. I did not have a Kundalini teacher, but the Kundalini would set me up with people where I would literally have to do these very same types of things. I remember one of the experiences I went through was I was living on some guy's property, and the guy was very, very, very irascible. He's very, very dominant. He's very, very, you know, kind of violent in a way. He'd be working on an engine or something like that, and you know, it's hot. In California, it can get really hot, and he would mess up a little bit, or it'd be a little bit difficult. Just like a little tiny thing would set him off, and he would literally start screaming, you know, and cussing and you know, just going nuts, you know. And you're just standing there looking at that, going, "Oh my God, damn! Look at this guy going off," you know. And then because of the circumstances I was in from the Kundalini, directly from the Kundalini, he put me inside a cement mixer. And a cement mixer, one of these mobile cement mixers, not the big truck, but it's more of a cement mixer. And I'm sure Bo knows what I'm talking about. Bo's over there on the chat room here. Hi, Bo. It's a cement mixer where you kind of go to a site. You know, you've got this like oval type of thing, and you've got he had me climb into it with an air chisel, and I was forced in the heat, in like 90-some degree heat, to chisel out the inside of that cement mixer just for no reason. He wanted to do something like that. He forced somebody to do something like that, and my Kundalini forced me to do it. So don't think that because I'm a teacher that I didn't have to go through levels of strong ego management in order to become this teacher. And don't think that I didn't have to totally submit myself and surrender myself and my ego and my process to the Kundalini itself, which I have done and continue to do. And as I go into teachings with folks who come as a private student, they get it. They get it both barrels all the time. And it does do a lot of good, I have to say. I mean, for a little while there, I was just, I would cringe myself at what I was telling these people to do. And I'd constantly go back and check, is this the thing? Is this the thing? Is this the thing? And it's always the thing. It's always the thing. And both student and teacher are literally marionettes of the Kundalini. Student and teacher are marionettes of the Kundalini. And that's the title of the show, by the way. Marionettes of the Kundalini. Okay?
Okay.
Or you could say Kundalini marionettes.
Okay.
As usual, ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what I'm going to speak about when we do this radio show. This is extemporaneous, straight from her. Okay? So in this program, she wants people to really understand how important it is for a person to come under the control of another person within the Kundalini and to be put through levels of extreme challenge for years and years and years and years. Okay? For as long as the Kundalini wants that person to be within that scenario, that person must be within that scenario. They must be. It's better if they're willing. Like with Amelia, Amelia, I got some resistance, at certain times, but for the most part, like 95% of the time, she was willing to do these things. She knew what it was coming from. She knew that she had to do it. She was doing it. And so, she's come through, like Teresa is saying, far better than when she went into it. More wisdom, more knowledge, more skills, these types of things she's coming through. And it's some of the fruit of that 9 years is going to be seen within the next 2 years. It's going to be, there's going to be some very, very beautiful scenarios that she is going to be responsible for. And her Kundalini basically working through her in order to create such beautiful, actionable experiences that people are going to have. So for those of you that are listening to this, whether it's in the archives or, you're listening live right now in the chat room or live right now, and clear this up for me, if you would, Santara. Mm-hmm. If they're listening on Facebook, they can listen live on Facebook without me knowing that they're listening, right?
Absolutely, yes. They can do that by just clicking on your photograph. Okay. Yeah. It doesn't show up anywhere.
It doesn't show up. You got total anonymity.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Hello everybody on Facebook. It's cool. Yeah, I got no complaint. So it's really important for people to understand that she is giving you a pathway into a greater level of merging with the divine. She's giving you a pathway. And the pathway creates a velocity in how your equation begins to manifest grace within you and upon this world. And pathway really is through ego. I'm looking at different words here. Ego reinvention. And by reinvention, I mean the ego changed from a hostile force to a force that is in support of what is occurring. Much in the same way that the Huna, the Hawaiian religion, looks at the ego, the Unihipili. Unihipili wants to become a higher mental self. Higher mental self wants to become Kundalini awakened. And it's in that triple, that trinity, that certain higher concepts within Huna gravitate around. Well, it's the same thing here. I never teach a person to kill the ego, but I do teach people to manage the ego. And by managing the ego, a lot of the time, it's all about stressing the ego, stressing the person, stressing their feelings, stressing their love, stressing their body, stressing their mind. It's like someone told me the other day they had a dream, and in the dream, the words from a rock band, John Bon Jovi, came to them, and it says, I'll sing it a little bit here. Shot through the heart and you're to blame, honey. You give love a bad name. And the Kundalini basically was saying that about me and my teachings and what I'm doing. And it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's very, very, and these are core issues. When you're dealing with the love, the fourth chakra, the anahata, the seat of the soul, which I don't I don't think a lot of the great unawakened authors realize that the soul is not the base of the spine; it's in the heart, and it's the eight the molecules of divinity within the heart. That's the seat of the soul, and when you break the heart, you're in some way, you're trouncing on the egotistic aspects of love and how a person feels about themselves and who they are, how they are, why they are, what they're doing, and God, when you do this work, you really do trounce on the heart quite hard. And in many ways, it's a destructive type of interaction because you're destroying certain areas of the heart that have, shall we say, expectation, that have, shall we say, ego infatuation. Because of my cultural upbringing, therefore, within the paradigm of a student-teacher, then I can expect certain levels of reverence to be given to me because this is our culture and this is what I've been taught. Therefore, this is what I expect. Therefore, if he doesn't give me what I expect, therefore, something's wrong. You have these other people, these New Age people going, well, if it doesn't feel good, then don't do it. Well, I'm going to say if it doesn't feel good, look closer at what you're getting. What does it not feel good to? If it's not feeling good to the ego, well, is that a bad thing?
I think maybe,
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think maybe within the context of being a student, maybe what happens is our expectations, total opposite of our expectations are given. So if our expectations are of something, we receive what we're stressed to the point where it is the opposite is what we perceive is being given. And it can take a while for us in various ways to understand that that is actually not what is being given. So it takes a while for us to remove what we perceive as being what we not deserve, but what we feel is right or correct or should
right.
be. And so
that's the path that you got to walk.
Sets it up that way. Yeah, she sets it up that way. So if our expectation is X, you may be damn sure she's going to make sure, I feel anyway, that is actually what we want to see.
I'll tell you what, when Amelia put in a position where she has to stress out students, it's the same thing. She is going to be that person that's going to say, okay, jump in the water there. Yep, look, I can see ice crystals forming. Now's the time to jump. And stand there and go, oh, okay, there we go. Okay, no, can't come out yet. No, another 20 seconds. Have a nice time. And that person is sitting in that pool of ice, shivering. Am I right, Amelia?
Yeah, and if you actually consider, just taking that example, and there are others worse, but just take that example. Just imagine what's happening for the ego there in all the different layers that are presented to them. You're obeying something that your ego doesn't want to do. You're obeying something because you have made a commitment to obeying. But my God, there are so many reasons given to you from ego, from your culture, from your conditioning, from all sorts of input in your life as to why you shouldn't be doing that. It's not a linear, simple thing, So
right.
Sometimes the instruction that comes from a teacher appears simple, like getting there into the cold water. But my God, like what happens to me when I get into the icy cold water and I have to stay there for a certain period of time might different for somebody else. Like, I just think what happens is incredible when we are placed into a position of obedience, or we are willing to follow the instructions of a teacher in the same way that we are willing to follow the instructions of the Kundalini. They go hand in hand. And I think if anybody has been led or directed by the Kundalini to go onto that path of having a teacher instruct them and guide them, that is a blessing beyond compare. Even though
it's hard.
It's not easy, and even though it's really difficult on the teacher as well. I mean, but the teacher knows where they're at. The student doesn't to the same degree. It is hard. But if you know that it is something that the Kundalini wants you to do, and if your teacher is constant and is there, well then, I think St. Teresa said this, if I'm recalling your words, there is nothing safer than that. There is nothing safer than that. And there is a freedom within that cannot be expressed unless you've actually taken that step and begin to live the truth of that process.
Yeah, she says there can be no danger in this, but rather great profit.
There is no danger.
This is what our Lord has often commanded me to do. And you can translate that, and this is what my Kundalini has often commanded me to do, and it's what I have often done. And I've had a confessor who mortified me greatly, and now and then distressed me. He tried me heavily, for he disquieted me exceedingly. Yet he was the one, I believe, that did me the most good. And this is an important thing to remember. Really, really important. For those of you that want to go as far as you can go into this lifetime, into grace, I feel this is the hardest, strongest, and most productive path to take. Seriously. It's the hardest, and it's the most productive path to take. You have to go into your Kundalini to feel if it's right for you, and you have to come across a teacher that is willing to take that risk with you. It's a great risk, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher, basically is going way out on a limb on the one hand, and is being controlled by the Kundalini on the other hand. So like St. Teresa said, it's safe. It's a safe thing to do. There can be no harm in it, but within society there can be a great level of judgment leveled at the Kundalini teacher for doing these types of things with you. And not everything can be spoken about. There are some things within this equation that have to remain silent and sacred, and it will never be spoken about, ever. And these, you have to be willing to go that route, to blindfold yourself and start walking up a trail that doesn't exist for other people. So let's just say you're on a high mountain, like say Mount Shasta, and the Kundalini Shakti comes to you and blindfolds you and says, "Okay, the mountain's that way. Go ahead. Start walking." It's a real test. It's a real test for the ego. And Tim Ashworth on the chat room says,
sorry, Chrism?
He said, yes.
Sorry, I just need to go blue there for a few minutes, okay?
Oh, sure. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay, so Tim Ashworth says, it's a good thing if it's feeling bad to the ego. Yeah. I mean, that context, if you're within the context of that student-teacher relationship, then yeah. if it's feeling bad to the ego, then it is a good thing. And it's important for people to remember that. This goes straight into relationships too. You know, straight into relationships. I have a student, their Kundalini allowed them to meet another person and then fall in love with that person. And I knew, as a teacher, I knew that this was not going to end pleasantly, dude. And yet, that was the direction for that person to go. They must experience that level of relationship disaster in order to learn specific aspects about themselves as a Kundalini awakened person. And those aspects, you know, that they deal directly with self-worth, with how you inject yourself into a relationship, and then you depend upon that relationship to fulfill you in ways that you shouldn't really be depending on, and how that relationship and that teaching can take you out of your practice, that can take you out of your out of the sacred bond that you have with the Kundalini or with the teacher. Relationships are great for that. They're really good for that. All right. First hour has gone by, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to come into some questions here, and here we go. I am looking at area code 848459. Hello, you're on the air with Chrism.
Hey,
there.
Chrism.
Hello.
This
Hi.
is Tyra.
Hi, Tyra. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And Celia's in the blue right now, so she won't.
Okay.
Have a question?
I have a question which is a little different, but it is still about relationship. And honestly, I don't even know. When I look back at my life, I always felt that nobody gave me the love that I needed or the wanted. So there's like a big void that I always felt since the childhood. And I always keep feeling that I keep getting rejections for love. Do you think that Kundalini can control who you come in touch with, and then what you just said, that but you don't get what you really wanted out of it, you know, and it's kind of tempting you. It looks like for the past several years I've been in such a tempting relationship, and then everything looks nice and fuzzy, but it's not going nowhere. And it feels like it's like a teasing kind of a situation.
Well, this is true. This is true. I mean, especially when you're on a love affair to reinvent you or to fulfill you in certain ways. She's going to go and say, you basically, no, Tyra, the love affairs that you're using to fulfill you in a way needs to be fulfilled by Kundalini, not by romantic trysts along the path of life. Okay, and so you won't feel secure, or you won't feel like your relationships are producing the kind of feeling that you want, because that is not the kind of feeling.
Chrism, I'm sorry, but I went back to the queue, so can you please repeat what you were just saying, like past 3-4 sentences?
Chrism, I interrupted Tyra. I beg your pardon. Could you just repeat what you were saying to her? I'm so sorry.
No worries.
If you're using Kundalini, if you're using a relationship to define who you are around that relationship, then you're in for a rude surprise. She's not going to fulfill those wants and desires that are based really in egotism It's the ego that says, oh gosh, I don't feel like I've been loved as well as I should have been, or as well as I want to have been. And I just need a person to come into my life and just love me the way I want to be loved. And that's not what you get. You have got to love yourself in a way that gives you definition. Tyra, what are you doing? Washing the dishes? Can you sit still?
I'm so sorry. I never realized I was on, but I'll mute myself. I was cooking.
Can you sit still?
Yeah, I'm just sitting now.
We can hear what you're doing here.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting down. So it's not like I'm trying to use my Kundalini to get what I want. I mean, even before I knew I had something going on within me, everything was going on. And so it's not something that I just initiated because I feel like I have Kundalini now.
No, I didn't actually say that about you at all. What I'm saying is that, people go into love affairs with specific expectations of self-fulfillment. And it's those expectations that are going to be shattered simply because you have expectations. The fact that you felt that I was talking about you having Kundalini and using Kundalini to have a successful relationship indicates that this is probably what you are doing. And this is something that you may need to look at harder. Because I was saying something completely different, and you just kind of interjected that into the conversation. And so this is something that I feel is real and active within you, and you will not get, except under very special circumstances, you will not get a love affair that is exactly what you want because you have the Kundalini. Bless you. Okay, and you have got to stop wanting that. You've got to have a love affair. You've got to have a love affair with your Kundalini first, and everything else secondarily.
Sometimes now I feel like, why did this thing started in me? Why the hell I'm in this now?
It's because of exactly what you're talking about. These are ego redefinitions. This is redefining the ego and redefining its power and its placement within the decisions and choices about your life that it is making. And she's taking it out of the control seat. And you're still kind of like reeling and kind of going, whoa, wait a minute. I want, for all my life, I want this and I just haven't been loved enough. And the ego's going, well, that's because you're loving the wrong thing.
Oh God, you're so funny.
You're having the wrong expressions, and you're having the wrong expectation. And so she's redefining that based upon your wants and desires. She's denying you what the ego wants, and will continue to do so.
Right.
She will continue to do this, and so until you start changing, your wants and desires based upon attachment and based upon a feeling of incompleteness within yourself, which is really a false incompleteness, because the incompleteness really is between you and your Kundalini, not you and another person.
Oh, okay. So what you're suggesting is just go with the flow, don't have any expectation that things should only go this way or that way. Just surrender.
I did not say that at all.
So what are you trying to, so what should I do? I mean, I understand. What is the solution? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask you, Chrism. How should I control my thought process?
Please don't put words in my mouth that I did not say. What I'm saying is this. You don't get to have a relationship based upon what your ego desires to have. You get to have a relationship with the Kundalini, and she will decide what it is you get to have.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You go to her first.
Mm-hmm.
You have that relationship with Shakti and Shiva first. And then, if Shakti and Shiva want you to have a relationship, they will guide you to the right person. And like this other student I was telling you about, they might guide you to a person that's going to totally break your heart, and you've got to be okay with that.
Right.
Because there are lessons about that, lessons about self-worth, lessons about redefining yourself based upon another person. No, you only redefine yourself based upon Kundalini, nothing else, no one else.
Okay.
So thank you for calling in. Thank you very much. And,
thank you so much. Thank
you. You're welcome. Absolutely. Going up to Mr. Mohan. Mohan of the mall. The mall, Mohan. Is Mohan in the mall?
No, Master. Today I'm at work.
It's good to have you here. Thank you for calling in. And you have a question, my friend.
Yes. Before my question, I would like to make the announcement about the Denver
Please
seminar.
Please do.
So the Kundalini Awakening seminar in Denver is coming up in 10 days. It's coming up fast. I would like to invite people on the call and even in the chat room to try and register and attend the event if possible. And you can contact me on the phone number 720-934-1751. I repeat, the number is 720-934-1751. You can contact me if you are interested.
Please come on out to the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, and Mohan has set us up with a very nice venue for having the seminar. Come and have your Kundalini accentuated. Put yourself literally for a weekend into what Amelia and I were talking about earlier. In a level of velocity within the Kundalini, velocity. And I have to say, at the seminar, very different than being my student. When you're at the seminar, the most pronounced activity at the seminar is love, Kundalini enhanced love. And it's that love that is really, really the invitation into greater levels of grace and greater levels of understanding. Now, do you have a question as well, Mohan?
Yes, Master. I wanted to discuss about the dream that I had last night. So, in the dream, you came and showed up in Denver, and I was surprised, Chrism, you are 10 days early to the seminar. And you said, no, Mohan, it is right time for you. I was confused. And then I took you to some house which is up there in the mountains. It's kind of forest with a stream flowing beside the house. And from the stream, I see all the reptiles coming out, the crocodiles, the hippos, and snakes. Like all the reptiles are fighting with each other. And I see big cobras fighting with each other. And suddenly, one of my friends from my kindergarten showed up, and he was talking to both of us. And suddenly, he sees those snakes fighting outside, and he wanted to catch them. He runs out to catch them, and I was yelling at him, "Don't go! The snake might bite you." But he goes and he catches those two snakes in his two hands, and he will come to you, and one of those snakes bite him, and you take those snakes in your hands and get it to me and ask me to hold one of the snake. And I was terrified. I hold one of the snake by its head, and you take out a bowl, and you wanted me to place its head inside the bowl, and some kind of liquid was coming out from the snake's mouth. It's like a water pipe. The bowl was filling up fast, and you were asking me to drink that liquid from that bowl. And I was asking you, are you sure, Master? And you were saying, like, this is the right thing for you now. I was like, okay. And I drink up that liquid, and suddenly a snake, it's like three-headed snake. It rises up my spine, and it comes out of my forehead, and it was looking at me with three heads facing to me. I was like terrified, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I see that energy is flowing up and down inside me. I don't know, and from that time, my heart is like pumping. Heartbeat is very high. I don't know if it's anxiety or the heart chakra working on me. What does that mean, Master?
Well, I'm kind of disturbed that you gave away what we were going to do at the seminar. I have the snakes here. You know, I'm ready to. We were going to fly them out, but I don't know. We're surprised.
The snakes have already arrived.
Yeah, the snakes. Well, it's actually a very good dream. It's a very Kundalini dream, and so I saw the house in the mountains, and I saw the stream flowing, and I saw the stream actually flowing on the left side of the house. House is you, and the stream, of course, is the Kundalini, and all the animals fighting with each other are basically going through levels of refinement that the wild natures do. Like so you have the animals fighting with each other, and you have the hippos and the snakes and the reptiles coming out of the water. This represents the body of Shakti, the body of the natural world within the Kundalini, and as the two cobras come up, representing, of course, the Kundalini once again, and as your friend from childhood comes into the picture, a child, you have to come as a child. You know, this is spoken of in the Bible.
He was all grown up now. He didn't show up as a child.
But you met him as a child. He was a childhood friend that you haven't seen since childhood, right?
I haven't seen him since last 5 years, but he was my friend since childhood until like I was 20, 25.
And you saw him last Friday?
No, I saw him in the dream last night.
Okay.
He lives in India, though.
I was a little confused. So this person goes out and grabs the snake, and you're afraid of the snake because, of course, you know, a king cobra is a very venomous snake.
Yes.
It's one of it's one of the top 5 most venomous ones, and they grow like 18 feet long, and so fairly large snakes.
Yeah.
And so he grabs 2 of them, which of course is Ida and Pingala, right? And and then I guess I take the snakes and I ask for a bowl and I start draining the fluid from the snake, which would be the venom, and the venom starts to fill up the bowl, and you need to drink the venom, and that makes total sense to me. It's just basically right now, Mohan. Right now, you need to really, really increase your trust in the Shakti within yourself. Right now, 10 days before the seminar, you need to increase your trust tremendously to the point where you're drinking the venom of the snake. You're drinking the venom of Shakti Shiva. You're drinking the Kundalini. You're drinking the Kundalini. I want you to drink the Kundalini. Matter of fact, I want you to go out, if you can tonight. I want you to go to a store, and I want you to buy some spring water, your favorite spring water, or the one that the Shakti in you chooses for you. I want you to go to that store. I want you to let her pick out a bottle of spring water. I want you to take it home, and I want you to fill a glass or a bowl that you can see that is similar to the bowl that you had in the dream. I want you to fill that bowl with the venom being the spring water. And I want you to drink that venom, drink that Kundalini, and really, really make the commitment into greater levels of trust. She's showing me right now that you're having some insecurities about the seminar, about who's going to come and whatnot.
Can you repeat that, Master?
Say again what?
Can you repeat the last sentence?
She's showing me that you're having some anxiety about the seminar. And she wants you to invest yourself into trusting her to bring those that need to be brought. And this is why she's having you do this 10 days in advance. 10 days. So tonight, you begin to deepen your level of trust and into the Kundalini. You drink the venom. And even to the point of taping something over the spring water bottle and just write in Hindi, snake venom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm being shown a liter bottle. It's not like a tiny little 10 ounce. It's a liter of spring water, and you're to put the words in Hindi, snake venom, on it. And even if you have to go out to Target or Walmart or somewhere and buy a bowl that looks like the bowl in your dream, you're to do that.
Okay.
Okay. And then you fill that bowl with the snake venom, and you consecrate that bowl with trust in the Kundalini. Trust, greater levels of trust. And it will feed that trust within you. And I also want you to go into deeper levels of devotion, giving her control over your life, giving her control over the choices in your life, giving her control over the health of you, over the health of your family, your wife, your children, giving her complete control over what is going on with you right now, which of course feeds the level of trust that she wants you to increase.
Okay.
Do you have those instructions?
Right, I do. Anyways, I'm not in control of this life anymore. I gave the control to my Kundalini long back. I am just going with the flow now.
There's more to go. There's more to go because as you saw in your dream, you were afraid of the snake.
Yeah, I was.
So there's still levels of you that are afraid of the Kundalini.
I always had, from my childhood, I always had these dreams where I was in an island filled with snakes all over. Like you cannot even put in a step. Like snakes will be all over and they will be on you. And I was terrified of those dreams since my childhood. That is repeated now.
That's kind of part of what Santosh and I were discussing earlier. You know, she's going to cherry pick issues from your life that you need to. And for some people, it's with spiders. For some people, it's with snakes. It's for these extreme predators in our lives. Mm-hmm. Are you in a windy place? Are you breathing into the phone?
I'm breathing. I'm inside my car. Actually, it's very windy outside.
All right. So, get the bottle, get the bowl, put the words in Hindi, snake venom, and visualize yourself drinking the venom the same way I was asking you to drink the venom in the dream. Okay?
Okay.
And let's see how it can also enhance your dream life.
Okay.
You make the announcement.
Thank you. Sorry, you're breaking, Master, your voice. Are you away from your mic?
I don't know how the sound is. So you can't hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I always worry about Blog Talk. How does the Kundalini interact with Blog Talk and things like that? So my apologies. Can you go ahead and make the announcement again, please?
Yeah. The Kundalini Awakening Seminar in Denver is coming up in 10 days. That is April 28th and 29th. And if you are interested to attend the seminar, you can please call me on 720-934-1751. And you can find further information about the seminar on the Facebook page, Kundalini Events and Seminars with Chrism.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mohan. All right, I'm going to put you back into the blue here. And a very, very, very Kundalini dream, ladies and gentlemen, that Mohan just expressed to us. A very strong Kundalini dream, and giving you context. I mean, the house and the stream next to the house, the animals coming out of the stream, because Shakti is that stream of life, that stream of nature. A very, very beautiful, very, very, very information-rich experience for Mohan. A friend from his past coming over and getting the two cobras that are fighting with each other, putting them in each one of his hands, and then coming over to Mohan, and then his teacher taking the snakes, and then emptying the venom from the snake into the bowl, and then having him drink it. I mean, this is literally drinking the Kundalini. A very beautiful, a very exceptional dream in a Kundalini context, because you've got to remember that this man is terrified of snakes, and so the teacher is forcing him to face some of these fears, forcing him to go into a life or death situation where he's literally drinking the venom of the king cobra. And literally, this is what it takes, my friends. In many ways, you must conquer the fears that control you. And as I go into the chat room, Tim Ashworth is asking me, he says, Chrism, I would love to ask you about love. It seems that most people looking for love are looking for someone, something outside of themselves, and this is never the answer. Yeah, I say in the mundane world, people are looking for someone, basically a love program that they can use in order to enhance themselves, or to feel good, or to feel secure, feel safe, feel nurtured, have children with, that type of a thing. And sometimes that is the answer for the mundane. But for the Kundalini awakened, even though you can get married and you can have children, you can have all these beautiful experiences, but there is always going to be something more. Always going to be something more. And Tim goes on to say, he says, the answer is not outside yourself ever, and people have to realize this before embarking on a usual relationship. You've got to have love for yourself, and I agree with you, Tim. Absolutely. And then Alana Seeker says, does Tyra need to strengthen or balance one of the chakras, like the second chakra, to help with this issue? I don't know that a chakra balancing is called for Tyra. I think a redefining in herself with what she's doing and why she's doing it would be really, really helpful. If there would be a redefinition, then of an emotional body, then looking at the second chakra would be very helpful. But looking at the second chakra and the fourth and the fifth would also be very, very helpful for her. But this is not the answer. It is not the answer. The answer is in how much she's allowing her ego to determine what her forward path is. And then Pandananda says, I had a dream recently where I was sitting up in bed talking on the phone with a snake. while a snake was slithering around the bedroom floor. I was trying to get off the phone to deal with it, but it jumped up and bit me on the hand and held on tight.
I love it.
Well, Pat and I, just welcome to the neighborhood.
That's
you and
wonderful.
Mohan have the same deal going. We got these snakes; they're just not going to let go. So there you go. Not only do you have wolves showing up over your left shoulder, Pandananda, as per the seminar, but you've also got snakes coming up and biting you. And you know what? I just want to say congratulations, my friend. Congratulations to you and to Mohan. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Excellent. All right, Santara, do you have any questions? We've got 23 minutes.
Okay, I do. I have some from last week. Let me see. I need to go over to my. Okay, I suppose something is just coming to me there about relationship, Chrism, and I didn't hear all of Tyra's. Well, I didn't hear what she said because I was distracted here. But I suppose sometimes we don't know consciously why or what we expect or want in a relationship, and it's often not until we are within a relationship, guided to be in a new relationship by Kundalini, that we are that we are given to see our old definitions brought forth. Do you know what I mean? So if we are Kundalini active and we are guided into a relationship, well then, that's not an accident, I feel. And stuff comes up for us then that we might not be aware of. And I think that's hugely important. All our old expectations and all of that, Kundalini changes all of that. And we can often be placed into a relationship that stresses, to use your word, that stresses our old patterns and our old definitions. These are brought forth, and we need to deal with that.
Go, girl. Go.
Well, I just think relationships are incredible, I mean, I just think so much can come from them, and it's a little bit like Mohan was saying there, well, it's not, it's just something that's occurring to me. I can remember saying to myself, yes, I'm surrendered to Kundalini in every intention, in every fiber of my being. Being surrendered to Kundalini. It was my absolute dedication, my absolute intention to be that way. And yes, in spite of that, within my conditioning and my patterns and my ego expression, in spite of my dedication and my intention, stuff comes up. And you see, the wonderful thing is Kundalini knows that. And I can remember being astounded at my responses to things, and shocked in a way that that these things come up, because it wouldn't have been my intention at all, Chrism. And yet, I think she sets us up that way, so that we can look straight in the face that which we need to acknowledge and let fall away from ourselves, and change. And she does that with a teacher, oh my God. And she does it through relationships. And she does it in so many ways, through organizing a seminar.
Just like this person I was talking about, this person, she was guided to go into a relationship by her Kundalini that was going to be destructive from an egotistic societal viewpoint. She's guided to go into a relationship that was going to fail and hurt.
Yeah.
Guided by her Kundalini to do that. And so you've got to understand that this is about the redefinition of who we think we are.
Yes, it is.
And just,
it's amazing, isn't it?
To understand it. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
I mean, it's such an amazing privilege to be within that dynamic, within the control and the placing of what Kundalini does with us. It's incredible. It's an amazing. It's just a grace beyond words, really. And we can glimpse it, and we can suddenly see it, and it escapes us again, and it's just amazing. And for everybody listening, that's within, a Kundalini activation and awakening. I think just to be grateful for being where we are within the context of our process really helps. Just give gratitude for everything that she is doing for us and with us, and who she brings into our lives, like our teacher, like Chrism was in my life and is in my life. It's different, but is within my life, and all of us that are listening. If you're listening to these words, there is a connection with your Kundalini and with Chrism in some regard. And we're all very different, I think, in what comes in. We have to open ourselves to receive what it is that the Kundalini is giving for us. And that of itself, that surrender and that opening ourselves to what she is giving us, that can actually just totally amplify and open us to the grace that is there for us. I'm shutting
Agreed.
up now.
No, it's really good. Those are good words. And in addition, I'd like to thank the Shakti, the Kundalini, the Shiva, the Kundalini, for helping the two dogs I have here on my left remain quiet. They are anticipating the walk that we're going to take, and they have not interrupted the show, and I'm just amazed at that because they were going crazy right before the show. So I'm really thankful to the Kundalini for that.
They're in the room with you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's because she's a puppy. I mean, geez Louise, having a calm puppy is almost unheard of. So go ahead and ask the question.
Okay, so there was a question last week that I didn't ask, and I'm going to ask it now because I'm straight off, and then I have a few more private questions. So it says, and this is obviously coming from, you did 2 shows relatively recently about Tantra, and you mentioned wet Tantra, so this question is coming from that. I have seen how wet Tantra can so easily lead to corruption and misinterpretation with students and teacher. I like what Chrism teaches about the Shakti. I can't imagine the Shakti wanting wet Tantra practiced in her name with students. Its sound form, that's badly written. It sounds from the past shows that Chrism is actively doing wet Tantra with his students. Can you ask, is this so?
Well, no, because I don't have any students around me. So, but wet Tantra is, that is the, for people that want to walk the Tantra path, that is what is needed to be done. It's not that I'm doing that with anybody, because I'm not. But the scenario is that wet Tantra is that way to go. And why can't you imagine that? Why is that so foreign to you? Is this a product of your culture? Is this a product of your programming? Where is it said in the Rig Veda or in any of these other practices, belief systems and informational conduits from Kundalini that wet Tantra is a bad thing to do from teacher to student? Where has it said that? How is that even brought into the picture? Where is the negativity? If Shakti wants you, the questioner, to have sex, wet Tantra, with a teacher What makes you think you're going to have any choice in that whatsoever? These days they like to sugarcoat Tantra. They say, oh, it's about our rituals and putting a lot of candles in the room and looking at each other and right. That can help. That's kind of like window dressing. Tantra is Tantra. Tantra is the way I've been given to teach it. Tantra is a direct representation of sacred male and sacred female coming together in a sacred level of creative force, copulation, call it what you want. Tantra is the direct reflection of those areas, and I know that's hard for people to accept. India was dominated by Britain for 200 or 300 years, and so one of the generals said to the British court that the best way to dominate the Indian subcontinent is to destroy their culture. Well, if you look at the Renaissance area of India, if you look at these statues and all the copulating people that are in those statues, that are in stone, engraved in these temples and in these statuaries, they're not wearing condoms. They're not wearing condoms. They're not like, going, oh, well, the teacher shouldn't do this. Oh, the teacher shouldn't do that. They're not groveling in fear to the Victorian and Edwardian standards of conduct. Uh-oh. Looks like I'm going to lose my power real quick. Just a second.
Okay.
I forgot to plug in.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Just a second here.
Do I need to tap
Right.
dance, or are you okay?
No, just a second. I got to plug in real quick here.
Okay.
And I know this is going to piss people off. I know it is. But I don't care. I mean, truth is truth. Truth is truth. And like Michelle Ranger just said, lesson after lesson still. And this is part of the deal. People's sexual mannerisms have been governed by the dominating cultures that came after perhaps their own culture discovered the answers. The Hindu discovered the answers during its Renaissance period about Tantra. But another culture comes in and says, oh, no, that's bad. That's bad. Don't do that. And the kids are taught in school, oh, that's bad. Don't do that. And the religion is altered in order so it can say, oh, no, that's bad. You must do it the way the new culture wants you to do it. And forget about the old culture. Forget about the Renaissance period. And you go ahead and you look at the statuary right now. You go and you look at the statuary of the Indian subcontinent, the Hindu Renaissance period. I think about the 10th century in India and before, and you will see true Tantra being represented in the statuary. And I don't care. I'm beyond caring about it anymore with regards to this. I don't teach Tantra. I don't teach it. It's not something I do. I teach Kundalini, and that's a very different thing. That's kind of like going beyond Tantra. But I agree with the truth of Tantra. I agree with it. I don't buy into the Victorian, Edwardian, sexual rules and regulations that govern our society today. I don't agree with them. It's not to say that I go outside of them, because I know that most people do agree with them. But if you're going for Kundalini and you're going into Tantra, then you better put your seatbelt on. You better put the seatbelt on your cultural programming. But you're lucky. You're lucky, my friends, because I'm not teaching that. I'm not teaching that. And you don't need to worry about that from me. For people that want to learn that type of thing, well, you go and you sit there and you light the candles and, have the flowers in the bowl of water and basically enact the window dressing of Tantra. You go ahead and do that. You can say all the chanting and you can say it's all about our celebrations of this, and that, and that's fine. I'm not going to detract from that. It's not going to get you anywhere. One of the first people that came to one of my seminars activated through Tantra. And so I was infused with huge amounts of level about Tantra from my Kundalini based upon their equation. And their partner did not activate, but this person did. And she came to the conference having the shaking kriyas, the kriyas that cause you to look like you have a palsy or something like that, which isn't, but that is what it looked like for folks on the outside. And so, no, I'm not having wet Tantra with anybody. I teach the Kundalini and I understand about wet Tantra. I don't need to practice wet Tantra in order to teach the applicability of wet Tantra within the Kundalini context. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. I've actually met I've met 3 people myself who have activated through Tantra, but not their partners. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so my next question is, hello, Santara. Can you please ask this to Chrism? I couldn't do the 5 Tibetans because of breathing issue and low energy issue. I read on the website that chakra breathing can be done as a replacement. In the article, it said that one has to move the body before going to the next chakra. What kind of movement should be done? And how many repetitions of breathing into each chakra is advisable?
Wait a minute. I think they're confusing something here. So are they saying that they can't do the 5 Tibetans, right?
Okay, so they couldn't do it because of breathing and low energy issue. And I actually assumed that the chakra breathing was from your website, but they don't actually state that. So I can't be sure of that. Did you say at some stage if you can't do the Tibetans that you could do the chakra breathing as a replacement?
Yeah, but I don't know about the movement of the body here. So she's mixing in.
I have to move the body before going to the... No, that's not part of what you say.
No. So I don't know where they're getting that. No. One thing I do recommend for people that wanted to do, say, more an advanced practice of the Tibetans is to say an affirmation for each of the Tibetans and then move on from there. For chakra breathing, you can say the affirmation as you breathe into the chakra, but you don't need to move the body. Matter of fact, I mean, the body is held still. In a lying on your back, you're held still. Your hands are in position. Your tongue is in position. You're breathing through your nose through each of the 7 chakra points, or actually the 5 chakra points. You go up to the neck. But I don't know about moving the body before that. I don't see that. So no.
No, actually, you don't say that in when you're talking. You don't. So.
And you know.
Yeah.
You know, Santara.
Yeah, no, you don't. So can you just speak a little bit about chakra breathing then, just to see will it cover, because this person is going to be listening.
Ishta's eating my shoe.
So are you saying that? Are you?
Ishta, don't. Ishta,
good.
Stop! Oh my God, she's eating my shoes, my slip-on shoes.
Quietly. Yeah, well, you see, there's nice Kundalini in those shoes, Chrism, so leave her be. Okay, so this person is saying that, assuming now, if you're listener, that you're speaking about Chrism's chakra breathing, and that you read somewhere that you suggested, Chrism, that if the Tibetans weren't possible, they could do chakra breathing instead. So what would they do? They would lie flat on their backs.
Fingers in position, in Gyan Mudra, tongue tip behind their upper front teeth, eyes in the up position, breathing through the nostrils in this. You stimulate the chakra point by pinching it, and then you put your hands back in position and your tongue and your eyes in the position, and then you breathe through your nose through the sensation of the area that was pinched. And that begins to match up, right? And you'll feel it.
Yeah, I do.
And it begins to
and what
translate.
mantra might you say?
You might say the mantra, yeah. You say the mantra. If you have a mantra that I've given you personally, you could say a mantra to that, or you could say Om Namah Shivaya Om or something of that nature.
Okay.
That's what you do. No movement.
Okay. So how many repetitions then into each chakra is advisable, Chrism?
It's different for each person. I would have to go into that person's equation and give them a repetition for that.
Would you have a general one? No? Would it depend?
No. I mean, I guess you could do 12 to start with, or less. Some permutation of 3, 6, 9, 12 to start with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to overamp.
Thank you.
That can overamp you pretty quick, and so I don't want to do that.
It's interesting because I never ever did chakra breathing only during the Shaktipat. And that was the only time, but that was just me.
Well, you got
Shaktipat,
a good thing going. So, yeah, it's very unique and individual.
Yeah, and even the result of the chakra breathing was quite amazing and quite different, during different Shaktipat. But anyway, that's another story. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. I gave a book of famous autobiography to one of my relatives who was not so spiritual. After reading the book, started teaching Reiki and minting money. Would my relative's karma have an effect on my karma?
I got 90 seconds.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
goodness me.
90 seconds. Any last words?
Okay, then I'll have to listen to the people. I promise next week maybe we'll start with questions a little earlier, okay? So I will read these questions next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Okay.
Next week I'll give you an hour for all the questions, okay?
Well, okay, but maybe not 10 minutes. A little bit longer. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, all right. Everybody, I'd like to thank you for listening. For those in the archives listening in the future, and those listening live on Facebook right now, and those listening live in the chat room right now, I'd like to thank you all for showing up and for coming. Everybody that's having Kundalini experiences, really, really surrender to your Kundalini. Trust your Kundalini, just like St. Teresa of Avila. And don't worry about cultural programming. She will take you outside of cultural programming to the degree that you can have and hold it. But don't let your cultural programming and your ego block the true sacredness of Kundalini. And I'm going to end it like I started it, everyone. Here we go.
An alle Frauen, die gesagt haben, mir fehle das gewisse Extra. Ich hab's jetzt. Von Sinalco. Und euch gebe ich nichts davon ab.
Hast du es auch schon? Sinalco extra fruchtig. Jetzt in 3 leckeren Sorten mit 10% Frucht. Gönn dir dein Extra.
Die Sinalco schmeckt.
Und jetzt neu. Sinalco extra zuckerfrei. 0% Zucker, 100% Geschmack.